As college football opens this weekend, Walters will have every big game on one of their TVs, both inside and out. On Saturday, Texas, Ohio State at noon, Alabama, Florida State at 3:30, LSU, Clemson, 7:30 on Saturday night. Walters is the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast and located across the street from the ballpark.
And now Parker sets. Here it is, swinging a long drive, deep right field. Cruz going back, way back to the warning track, looking up, and it is gone. Goodbye. A home run 4 rows deep over the big 14-foot 8-inch wall in right center field and into section 141. Brandon Lau, with his 27th home run of the year, gives him 67 runs batted in, and he homers to give the Rays the lead on the 8th pitch of the at-bat, a 94-mile-an-hour fastball. And it's Tampa Bay 2 and Washington nothing. He stops the kick, the pitch, swing and a miss. He struck him out with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, running up and off the plate away, and Adams swings through it, and the ball game is over.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. My usual co-host, MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman. He is off for this installment of the podcast, but I'm pleased to be joined by the owner and executive producer of Nats Chat, Tim Shovers. And what a frustrating game for the Nats on Friday night. The offense did plenty of good things, but ultimately scored one run, a 4-1 loss to the Tampa Bay Rays at Nationals Park on Friday evening. This in game 1 of a 3-game series and game 1 of a 6-game homestand. The Nats now have lost 6 consecutive games and have reached yet another new low point in MLB's 2025 regular season. 28 games below 500, 53-81. Worst record in the National League East, second worst record in the National League. And yes, I did say 53-81, so this is officially the Nats' 6th consecutive non-winning regular season, 2020 through 2025. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by Window Nation's 50% off sale. That expires on August 31st. If you have an in-home consult, you can get 50% off Window Nation Windows. Schedule your estimate right now, 866-90-NATION, or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that the Nats Chat podcast sent you. Coming up later in the show, an update on the Nats AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings, from the voice of the Red Wings, Josh Whetzel. Nats starting pitcher Mitchell Parker, he on Friday evening had his first good start in a month. Was nice to see that. But the Nats on Friday evening scored just the 1 run despite totaling 12 hits and working 4 walks. Why? The Nats went 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position. The Nats in the bottom of the 7th had CJ Abrams on first and James Wood on third with no outs while trailing 3-1. But then 3 consecutive Nats struck out in Josh Bell, pinch hitting Andres Chaparro, and Riley Adams. And that inning, in so many ways, perfectly captured this game. This was a maddening night, Tim, if you're a Nats fan.
Yeah, it was. I mean, for the team to get this many hits and only come through with 1 run, and then to have so many rallies cut short by, strikeouts to end the inning, and especially the 9th inning, just to not score 1 run in the 9th inning was frustrating enough, and that seems to happen all the time. Of course, obviously, the standard 9th inning tying run comes up to bat after the team's been down all game. The only positive from this game is that Mitchell Parker didn't give up 5 or 6 runs. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, the Nats in this game did get some good performances from young players in terms of batters, so that was good. But the 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position really was something. The scoring just the 1 run despite the 12 hits really was something. The 12 hits were 2 doubles and 10 singles. We did have another base running boo-boo by the Nats in this game. The boo-boo was by the returning Dalen Lyle, so good to see him back. He returned from a 4-game absence caused by illness. He was the Nats starting DH and number 6 batter. He went 1 for 4 with a single. Lyle in the bottom of the 2nd had a leadoff first pitch single up the middle, but he on the next pitch got thrown out and trying to advance to third base on a Paul DeJong first pitch single to left field. Boy, you talk about a maddening game. Here you have Lyle in his return game getting a single, and then on the next pitch, he gets thrown out on the base pass. But with the Nats' struggles in this game, especially with runners in scoring position, so this probably will surprise people, but the Nats overall this season have not been that bad with runners in scoring position. It feels like the numbers should be worse, but the Nats for this regular season are basically middle of the pack in terms of team OPS when it comes to how the Nats do with runners in scoring position. But, we've talked about this many times. There are bad approaches and bad plate appearances by Nats batters way too often in games. And certainly in this game, you saw some of that in some big spots. There was some bad luck, too, in terms of why the Nats went 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position. And, inevitably, we come back to coaching, right? And, you say to yourself, okay, how much of this is just Nats hitters not being very good versus how much of this is these guys not being coached up in the way they should be? And it was pretty funny what happened in this game. And, you could take the word funny in several ways there. So CJ Abrams, bottom of the fourth, struck out looking with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and the Nats down 2-1. The called strike 3 from the home plate umpire, Derek Thomas, was terrible. Came on a pitch that was way low and out of the strike zone. The Nats assistant hitting coach, Chris Johnson, got ejected from the game for arguing the call. Now, I don't blame Johnson for being mad about the call, but that is rare that the assistant hitting coach gets tossed. That is not something that you see with any kind of regularity.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I can't recall something similar. I honestly don't know. Does every team have an assistant hitting coach? I honestly couldn't tell you offhand. But I don't know what protocol is because, again, there aren't that many teams with assistant hitting coaches. Is he overstepping his bounds? Like, is the main hitting coach supposed to be the one to bark, or is it just whatever, anyone from the dugout? Should we be criticizing Cairo or Coles for letting Johnson be in that spot, or should we be applauding Johnson for being a representative of CJ Abrams in the moment? I honestly don't even know which way to go.
It's not a great look for the interim manager, Miguel Cairo, or the hitting coach, Darnell Coles, that they weren't the ones defending Abrams in that spot and that Johnson was. We don't know what Johnson said. So, yeah, like it's a weird deal. But I would say, just generally speaking, if someone is going to be defending one of your key players in a spot like that, it should be the manager or at least the hitting coach. And, that onus should not fall on the assistant hitting coach. You could always email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We got this from DJ. He says, this game truly shows that coaching is the problem. Why is the assistant hitting coach, Chris Johnson, the one defending the players on the terrible cold strike 3 to CJ with the base is loaded? It's a good question. Just because you don't get tossed and someone else gets tossed doesn't mean that you weren't upset, doesn't mean that you are not standing up for your player. I get that. But just the visual, the optics in a moment like that are not ideal. That's not something that the assistant hitting coach should be doing, standing up for CJ Abrams. It is something more that the manager, or in this case, interim manager, or at least, like I said, hitting coach should be doing. By the way, this is why, to me anyway, you need automated ball and strike calls. Like, it's so silly that we still have this where a pitch like that gets called a strike 3. That was such a bad call by the home plate umpire, Derek Thomas. At the same time, calling balls and strikes is not easy. And with pitchers these days throwing harder than ever before, I do have sympathy for these home plate umpires. Like, you're not going to get every call right. No one's going to bat 1,000 in terms of ball strike calls. And so why are we putting this onus on these home plate umpires to be perfect on these calls? So to me, that is an example of why we need the automated balls and strikes. But yeah, Abrams in that spot striking out. But the thing with this game was Abrams, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Brady House off the bench, all did well as batters. And so I do want to at least mention that here. Like, the 1 run, frustrating. 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position, frustrating. But these young players doing well was good to see. Abrams as the Nats starting shortstop and number 2 batter, 3 for 5 with a double and 2 singles. James Wood is the Nats starting left fielder and number 1 batter, 0 for 2, but with 3 walks. His first game with more than 1 walk since July 21st. We've talked about him being in this plate discipline funk. I think that stat captures that as much as anything. James Wood, with regularity, was drawing multiple walks in games. Here we have his first multi-walk game since July 21st. Dylan Cruz, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 8 batter, 3 for 4 with 3 singles. Also went 2 for 2 with stolen bases. And Brady House, he did not start. This was a Paul DeYoung / Miguel Cairo specialty. But House did come off the bench. He had a 2-out opposite field double to right field on a 1-2 pitch in the bottom of the 9th inning. Good piece of hitting by House there. So Abrams, Wood, Cruz, each guy gets on base 3 times. House comes off the bench, laces a double. I did take some solace in that. It was good to see those guys do as they did.
You definitely should take solace in that. Those are all positives. It's funny you mentioned that stat with Wood and the multiple walks, because when I looked at the box score after the game, you see 3 underneath the BB column for Wood, and I was like, I haven't seen that in a long time, especially since he's really taken over to the leadoff spot. Love the Abrams 3 hits. Hope that he has a hot September down the stretch. I know we still would love to see more out of CJ Abrams this year. The House double, that's really good. I mean, that was a clutch double too. Kept them in the game, kept things moving. So you definitely, even though the 0 for 12 is maddening and 12 hits and 1 run is maddening, there are some offensive positives to really enjoy here on top of Dylan Cruz as well.
James Wood for the month of August now, 10 walks versus 40 strikeouts. This game reminds me of a football game in which the team has like 500 total net yards of offense, but scores like 16 points because the team was really bad in the red zone, you know, and at the end of the game, you're really upset about the team not scoring more points and not doing better in the red zone. But it's hard not to look at the 500 total net yards of offense and be like, well, you know what? I mean, there were some good things here. And I think you say the same thing about the Nats in this game. While we are talking about Nats position players, Drew Millas' season is in fact done. The Nats on Friday afternoon announced having place catcher Drew Millas on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to August 28th, due to a fractured and dislocated left second finger on which he went surgery on Friday. And Miguel Cairo, during his pregame session with reporters, did say that Millas is in fact done for the year. The Nats on Friday afternoon announced having selected the contract of catcher CJ Stubbs from AAA-Rochester. CJ Stubbs, the Nats signed him as a minor league free agent in May 2024. So clearly now, Riley Adams is the number 1 catcher moving forward. Now, Keibert Ruiz is on the mend, and there is some thought here that he could begin a minor league rehab assignment at some point soon. So maybe we do see him before the end of the Nats season. Would be nice to see him before the end of the Nats season. But Riley Adams, for now, you would think he's going to be getting a whole lot of playing time at catcher. He certainly was the Nats starting catcher on Friday evening. He is the Nats starting catcher and number 5 batter, went 1 for 5 with a single and a couple of strikeouts. But unfortunate that Drew Millas' season is done. He had been doing a good job. Like when we talk about the Nats' improved offensive production at catcher, that has not just been a Riley Adams thing. That had been a Riley Adams, Drew Millas thing.
It is a shame. Millas had taken advantage of his opportunity. We now won't get to see him the rest of the year. I am encouraged, though, of course. We all should be encouraged that Keibert Ruiz is on the mend and is making his way towards a rehab assignment, which does give you hope that he can return this year, because thought of him never returning for the final few months of the season after that moment, that would make a very long winter for Keibert. So hopefully for his sake, he's able to make his way back. Riley Adams indeed is going to have a lot of playing time. He's going to play probably at least 4 out of every 5 days down the stretch. I don't think CJ Stubbs is going to get a ton of playing time if Adams stays healthy. I will be interested to see if he sort of gets paired with a specific pitcher almost for these, as these pitchers have 5-ish starts down the stretch. So with that, I don't know how long Stubbs is going to be up here, because the Keibert Ruiz thing, we don't know how long this rehab assignment will be. Will it be a Dylan Cruz type rehab assignment, or will it be a shorter one?
The timeline with Keibert Ruiz, just to refresh everyone's memories here, June 24th, the Nats announced having put Ruiz on the 10-day injured list with a head contusion. June 27th, the Nats announced having transferred Ruiz to the 7-day concussion injured list. July 4th, the Nats announced having reinstated Ruiz from that 7-day concussion injured list. But July 8th, the Nats announced having put Ruiz back on the 7-day concussion injured list, retroactive to July 6th. And that was what was so concerning, that he had just come off the 7-day concussion IL and then went back on the 7-day concussion IL. And he has been on that ever since. Retroactively speaking, July 6th, the day on which the Nats fired Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez, that is the day on which, retroactively speaking, Keibert Ruiz went back on that 7-day concussion injured list.
For those interested in learning a new language, whether it be Spanish, French, or something else, check out Babbel. Babbel's 10-minute lessons are quick and handcrafted by over 200 language experts, ready to get you talking about your new language in just 3 weeks, because talking is the key to really knowing any language. Designed by real people for having real conversations, Babbel gets you talking. With over 16 million subscriptions sold, Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee, so no pressure. Here's a special limited-time deal for our listeners right now. Get up to 60%, that's 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for Nats Chat listeners at babbel.com/natschat. Get up to 60% off babbel.com/natschat. Spelled BABBEL.com/natschat. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Parker delivers, swinging a drive in the air to deep right center field. This is way back. This ball is gone. A home run. Everson Pereira to right center field over the big wall. His first home run in the big leagues this year. And the Rays get a run right back and now add to the lead. They lead it by the score of 3-1.
Well, a bright spot for the Nats in this 4-1 loss to the Rays on Friday evening was starting pitcher Mitchell Parker. There had been some thought that the Nats might skip Parker's turn in the rotation, given the team's off day on Thursday and given how poorly Parker had been pitching. The Nats did not skip Parker's turn. We talked about this on the last installment of the Nats Chat podcast, and at least if you're going off of how Parker did on Friday evening, not skipping him was the right call. Parker was good. 3 runs in 6 1/3 innings with 7 strikeouts versus no walks. And that stands out as much as anything. Mitchell Parker, who in no way is a strikeout pitcher, had 7 strikeouts in 6 1/3 innings and 7 strikeouts versus no walks. He gave up 6 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 3 singles. He threw a lot of strikes, 91 pitches, 62 strikes, just 29 balls. The homer was the thing. Parker, in the top of the first, allowed 2 runs. He gave up a 2-out full count, 2-run homer by University of Maryland product Brandon Lau to right center field for a 2-0 Rays lead, and Parker in the top of the 5th gave up a leadoff opposite field home run by Everson Pereira to right center for a 3-1 Rays lead. The homer went a projected 421 feet per Statcast, but otherwise Parker was good. The strikeout was in effect. You know, he did give up the 2 runs in the first inning and yet another instance of him struggling in a first inning, but the rest of the game, I was impressed. Good job, Mitchell Parker. Very nice to see him do well.
A lot of positives from Parker. I'll start with the negative, though. That is the 2-run homer right away in the first inning. Considering the Nats, when they fall behind early, that usually spells doom for them, and they don't even get a second run after they had 9 innings to do so. But on a positive front, of course, 6 1/3 innings, only 3 runs given up. It is the most outs recorded, Al, for Mitchell Parker since April 22nd. And to put in perspective of how long ago that was, he threw 8 innings that day, and we probably weren't all that surprised that he pitched well that day back in April 22nd, and we certainly feel a lot different. Here we are on August 29th. So glad to see him pitch well. I've obviously had criticized the decision by Cairo to pitch both Parker and Irvin this weekend. We'll see what happens with Irvin on Saturday. I thought it was a great opportunity to use the calendar to your advantage. Use the day off, skip one of the 2 guys. They didn't. Here we are. But another thing with Parker, and I know like you could totally make fun of this, but this is a legitimate comment. He had gone above 6 entering this, and he was above 6 in the middle of this game. But the final few innings pushed his ERA down to 5.94. So for whatever it's worth, Parker is under the 6 ERA threshold.
We will take that. Listen, with what we've seen with him lately, I think you take that. I don't think that's a joke. I think that's actually something you say, okay, that's progress here. Mitchell Parker on Friday evening had his best outing since the Nats' 9-3 win at the Minnesota Twins all the way back on July 26. Parker in that game, 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings. He's since then had been horrible. I mean, you really can't overstate how poorly he was doing. Here are his final lines since that game up until this game on Friday evening. 8 runs in 4 innings, 4 runs in 5 innings, 5 runs in 5 1/3 innings, 6 runs, 5 earned in 1 2/3 innings, 6 runs in 5 innings. I mean, one horrible start after another. And so to see him do well on Friday evening was nice. You know, we've talked about, like, what is the thought process here with Mitchell Parker for the rest of the season? It may be that he has been so bad that he has pitched his way out of being in the Nats' long-term starting pitching plans. But you know what? Let's see the rest of the season. And if he can piece together a nice run here, maybe, just maybe, he can make himself a factor for next year. Of course, there's so much up in the air. We don't know who's going to be deciding who is making up the Nats starting rotation for next season, given that we don't know who will be running Nats baseball operations. We don't know who the manager will be. Mitchell Parker has not had a good season, but he had a good night on Friday night, and a good job by him to do as he did. The Nats relief pitching in this 4-1 loss to the Rays on Friday evening. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. Clayton Beeter faced 2 batters and got 2 outs, both of which were swinging strikeouts. Cole Henry tossed a scoreless top of the 8th with 2 swinging strikeouts, despite issuing back-to-back 2-out walks. PJ Poulin did allow a run in 2/3 of an inning. He in the top of the 9th allowed a run as he issued a 2-out walk and then gave up back-to-back 2-out singles. And Orlando Rebolta faced 1 batter and got 1 out. So ultimately 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. But I do look at this as another pretty good outing by the bullpen, and I do feel like the bullpen is in a much better place. I don't know that you can ever feel good about this bullpen this season because the bullpen overall has been so bad. But lately the bullpen has been a lot better. We've been talking about this, and I thought on Friday evening, for the most part, the bullpen did a pretty good job.
You now expect the bullpen to sort of hold it together, if you will. There's obviously nights where they fall apart, but there was a period where early in the season, the first half, where it was comical, right? I mean, it was like every single time they came out there, it felt like they were giving up 6 runs, and to the point where the only guy out of the 4 who pitched poorly tonight is PJ Poulin. And you look at his numbers, and it's like, all right, he gave up 1 run and 2 hits and 2/3 of an inning. Like, it's not that terrible. Rebolta, nice job to get out of it and keep the Nats to have a chance down 3 runs. But when you see that some of these guys, Beeter and Poulin, are holding together the bullpen, it makes you even more aggravated at what the Nats went into opening day with some of these guys, but we've already covered that.
Well, it took an in-season revamping of the bullpen to get this thing to be halfway decent. And the people who make up the bullpen now are not the people who were making up the bullpen back in April, May, and June. And I think that says a lot. You know, the bullpen construction this past offseason was really bad. Yes, Mike Rizzo did not have a sky-high budget with which to work. At the same time, what he did with that budget was not impressive at all. When you make 3 significant offseason bullpen acquisitions who all end up being cut before the All-Star break, right? I mean, think about that, okay? Jorge Lopez, Colin Boucher, Lucas Sims. Think about that. Just one whiff after another in terms of bullpen acquisitions. And these guys who now make up the bullpen are doing a pretty good job, and it's good to have that. Again, it still overall has been a really bad season in terms of Nats relief pitching, but things have gotten better here in recent weeks, and it's good to be able to say that.
Yandy Diaz at first. Brandon Lau at second. Shortstop Carson Williams. Junior Carano at third. Swinging a fly ball right center. Moving over is the right fielder Lowe. He'll get there to make the catch. Runners will tag. Both will advance. Down the line to score. From third is James Wood. Over to third is CJ Abrams. On the 8th sacrifice fly of the year for Luis Garcia Jr. And he drives in his 55th run of the year to get the Nationals on the board here with 2 out in the bottom of the first. It's now Tampa Bay 2 and Washington 1.
You can always email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We got this email from Dennis Kemp. Writes Dennis, on opening day, I stopped by the sports book outside the center field gates. The over-under for Nats wins was 70.5, which is only 71 and 91. I just knew the boys would accomplish that, but boy, was I ever wrong. I was going to take you fellows out to dinner with my winnings. maybe next year. Keep up the good work. I listen to every episode while walking my dog. Thank you for that, Dennis, who comes to us from Laurel, Maryland. So 71 and 91, right? 71 wins. That was the win total for the Nats for each of the previous two regular seasons. The Nats, as mentioned now, 53 and 81. 71 and 91. Hey, it's still possible. But the Nats would have to go 18 and 10 the rest of the way to get to 71 and 91. 18 and 10 just to equal the paltry win total of the last two regular seasons. That is crazy. And to Dennis's point, however you felt about things going into this season, and I personally thought the Nats were going to go 82 and 80. Okay, so what did I know? I know Mark said 79 wins. I think most people felt like the team would be better. How much better was the question. Nobody ever anticipated this. Even if you are the biggest Nats pessimist, I don't know anyone who thought that this season would go as this season has gone, to where you're looking at 53 and 81 with 28 games left. 28 games below 500 with 28 games left. It's a humbling reality. We all know how we got here. We're still trying to figure out exactly why we're here and where the team is going to go moving forward. But there still to me is like a shock and awe to this of, wow, did this thing go awry this season?
Yeah, Dennis reminds us, first off, Dennis, we're still down to go out to dinner if you want to take us out. But, I understand you didn't win the bet, so I respect the bank account. I predicted 77 wins before the season started, and the lowest I was willing to go was 71. Okay, I thought, all right, they're definitely going to win 70 games, which again, if you win 70 games, that means you still lose 92. It is not a high bar to reach. Looking at it now, I'm not even pretending that they're going to win 71 games. They got 53 wins with 28 games to go. Another way to put it, they need to win 10 of the final 28 to avoid 100 losses. What that means to you, that's up to you. But man, I don't know if they're going to get the 10 wins. I mean, they should. That would be 10 and 18. Would it stun you if they went 9 and 19? I highly doubt it.
The good news would be that the schedule does soften here in the coming weeks. 3 games against the Rays this weekend, followed by 3 games against the Miami Marlins. Then comes a 7-game road trip that includes 4 games at the Marlins. After that is a homestand that includes 3 games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So you'd like to think the Nats could avoid 100 losses, but like you said, who knows? And, there also is this, and we haven't talked about this. The Nats, because they had the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, can pick no higher than 10th in the 2026 MLB draft. So the thought that perhaps some might have, if you're not caught up with the current MLB draft rules of, well, at least the Nats can get a super high pick in the 2026 draft. At least that can be something that is obtained from this very disappointing season. Oh, no. That's not the way this works anymore. The Nats can only pick as high as 10th in that 2026 MLB draft. So it's not like this bad season could result in the Nats having, another top 3, top 5 pick. So here we are. The Nats guaranteed to have a non-winning regular season. Of course, this will end up being another losing regular season for the Nats. Hopefully they can stave off that for as long as possible. Game 2 of this 3-game set against the Rays Saturday afternoon at 4:05. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. We saw Mitchell Parker on Friday evening have his best start in a while. Perhaps we'll see Irvin, who like Parker has been struggling big time, pitch well come Saturday afternoon. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at natschatpodcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Window Nation, which is offering a great sale, a 50% off sale that expires on August 31st. 50% off if you have an in-home consult first. Schedule your home estimate now, 866-90-NATION, or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that the Nats Chat Podcast sent you. We offer shout-outs on the Nats Chat Podcast. If you're interested in having a shout-out delivered for you to someone who you care about, hit up Tim Shovers at natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a very special shout-out that we want to deliver right now. A happy birthday to our friend Val. If you follow Nats Chat on social media, you perhaps have seen pictures of Val wearing her Nats Chat podcast t-shirt at ballparks all across the country. Val is an extremely loyal listener of this podcast. She is a massive Nationals fan. She goes to so many games. I salute her for her fandom, her loyalty to the team. So impressive. And it is her birthday. So Val, happy birthday. We hope you have a great day.
Happy B-Day, Val. You mean a lot to this podcast. It's really appreciated when you go and represent the podcast with the shirts all across the country in these stadiums. You wear it a lot at Nationals Park. See you a lot at Walters kind of before the game. You make that your pregame spot, which is exactly what we hope for from our listeners. And I want to give, a special thanks to Val, where the most recent hangout that was earlier in the month, I got there a half hour early. You know what it is when you call for a party, you hope just at least someone shows up. And there was Val. And she's like, yeah, I'll be there. And a half hour before, already had one person show up. So that meant a lot. Have a great birthday, Val.
We love Val. Terrific Nats fan, very loyal supporter of this podcast. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Tim Shovers, I'm Al Galdi. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast, and we leave you now with the latest on the Nats AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings, with this from the voice of the Red Wings, Josh Whetzel.
The 0-1, Stubbs, it's a high fly ball the other way to deep right field. Workman back in right center. This carries out of here. Stubbs' first Red Wings homer goes the other way out of here to right center. 4-2 Toledo. Christian Franklin led off the first with a home run. And now Stubbs leads off the third with a homer. Here's a quick update on how the Red Wings are doing right now. Andrew Pinckney's been hot in the second half of the season, hitting .301 with 12 homers, 29 stolen bases just in the second half. He had a 2-homer, 5 RBI game on Tuesday night in Jacksonville, Florida. Pinckney now with 20 homers and, again, 29 stolen bases overall this season. He is the first Red Wings 2020 player since Don Baylor in 1971, just the second 2020 player in the International League so far this season. Nick Schnell hit his 18th home run of the season on Tuesday night in Jacksonville. 13 of those home runs have come in the second half. He has the second most homers of any player in the league in the second half of the season, and his 42 RBIs are the most in the second half in the IL. Yo-Yo Morales on Wednesday had a 2-for-4 night with a double. He now has a 9-game hitting streak going, during which time the former second-round pick is hitting .395 with 4 doubles and 2 home runs. He's knocked in at least 1 run in 6 of his last 7 games. And on the pitching front, Andrew Alvarez picked up the win on Tuesday for the Wings. He's now 3-7 with a 4.10 ERA on the season. The former Nationals minor league pitcher of the year since June 11th has made 13 starts, 3 wins, 1 loss, and a very solid ERA of 3.18 in that time span. Veteran right-hander Adrian Sampson, who's pitched in parts of 5 years in the major leagues, has made 12 starts this year for the Red Wings. He's 3-4 with a 4.52 earned run average. Over his last 3 starts, he's gone at least 6 innings in each of those outings with a 1-1 record and an ERA right at 2. And Mason Thompson, who had not been pitching for a while with a bit of a sore arm, is back. And over his last 4 appearances, he's gone 5 1/3 innings without allowing a run and only giving up 1 hit from the big Texan, Mason Thompson. This is Josh Whetzel with this Rochester Red Wings update. Infield playing him to pull to the right by a couple of steps. The delivery rammed the other way to deep left field. Rodin's going back, looking up. This is out of here. Schnell goes the other way for a solo shot on an 0-2 pitch, and the Red Wings have taken a 3-2 lead. Home run number 8 for Schnell.